nature. I think the most important thing that humanity has to preserve in the coming years is access to nature. I think that's more important than anything else, and as much wild nature as possible. Sort of along the lines of Edward O. Wilson's Half-Earth Project, where he wrote a book, and he says that, in the book, he says that we should preserve half the earth for nature. I personally think we should preserve more for nature. I think he thought that too. But I think he put 50% because it's a nice number, and it's already a target that we're not even close to achieving. I think the preservation of nature and the access to nature also needs to happen on a sort of fractal level. Fractal, by fractal I mean that in any given area of the earth, there should be a rough division between humanity and nature on a grand scale, but even on a micro scale. If you go into a city, most cities don't have adequate nature, in my opinion. I've been to tons of cities around the world. In 2010, around there, that was when I was in academia, so this is kind of an academic story. In 2010, I was sent to Strasbourg, France. It was a nice little city. It was a math conference there, that's why I went there. It was a math conference there, and that city, I walked from one end of the city to another. I walked all over that city, just for some sightseeing, after the conference. The conference was on crystalline cohomology or something. To be honest, I don't even know what that is anymore. That was such a long time ago. 2010, that was a long time ago. I'm not exactly sure what that thing is anymore. But anyways, I walked from one end of that city to another end, and I didn't see any nature around except for some highly domesticated kinds or habituated kinds like rock doves. There were no parks that I could tell. I'm not saying there isn't any nature in the city, but there might have been some grass. But most of it, I even have pictures from back in that day. I wasn't into photography back then. I just took some pictures on a point-and-shoot camera. But there was no nature in the city, and I consider that a travesty. I think that's a travesty because if someone is born in a place like that, and they walk around their own city, they're not going to find a lot of nature. They're not going to be exposed to nature. I think it's practically a crime if someone grows up and for years they grow up in a city and they never encounter something wild. I'm really lucky to be around a lot of nature. When I grew up, actually, I grew up in Ottawa, and where I grew up, there was a lot of nature around, places that weren't really tended or cultivated. I thought that was pretty cool, and it's not common. There are millions of people who don't get exposed to nature. You might think that, well, at least some people might say that having access to nature is not an immediate solution to any problems. I don't think we need immediate solutions. That's an important point. I think the seeking of immediate solutions is actually counterproductive because all the immediate solutions we have in front of us for global problems like climate change and habitat destruction and the destruction of art now with artificial intelligence, all these problems, the only immediate solutions to them are solutions that are actually bandages that only actually contribute to the worsening of the problem, because the only problems that we can really see, we're myopic. Human beings are myopic in modern culture. Modern culture, it's not as though that we're necessarily myopic, because I could easily say, and millions of people could say, well, what we're doing to the planet is wrong. What's going to happen in 50, 100 years? We're already seeing the devastation. The sun was setting it down there just now, and it was really red because of the wildfires. And this increasing frequency of wildfires is due to what we're doing to the planet. We can see that. We can predict that. But as a society as an organism, you have to think of technology combined with human beings as a single entity. The parameters of that system give rise to an emerging phenomena, and that emerging phenomena is the direction of human impulses into a highly constrained path that only allows us to seek out technical problems and solve them with technical solutions, which thereby contribute to the problem, because the innovation and the development of technology is actually contributing to the problem, because it requires resource extraction, it requires more carbon dioxide input into the atmosphere. That's not really the right way to go about it, I think. I think technical solutions, I think the age in which technical solutions can provide true ameliorations in the betterment of human society is mostly over. I think it's mostly over. There are so many different things that make it difficult to see that. First of all, just the very fact that we can only work on technical solutions. Just that fact, because modern industrial society only allows us to work on those technical solutions, most of us have been doing that for all our lives. The fact that that's not the answer creates a very large cognitive dissonance in our minds. That cognitive dissonance is something that prevents us from trying to seek other solutions, because if we open our minds to those other solutions, we experience a very great level of discomfort, and no one wants to experience a very great level of discomfort. We have to experience that discomfort. I actually think that discomfort is good. I think that discomfort is good. I experienced a very great level of discomfort when I graduated. When I finished my PhD in mathematics, I got a postdoctoral fellowship in Australia. And there I experienced a great level of discomfort because I started spending more time in nature, and something happened in my, I'm not sure, but some transformation was started in my mind. Some transformation was started there. It was a kind of transformation where I experienced a sense of futility. I thought what I was doing was futile. I thought it was useless. That's not to say that I think mathematics is useless. I think it's a beautiful art. Don't get me wrong, I think mathematics is a beautiful art. But I do think that taking something like mathematics and taking it to the extreme of specialization that we're doing today is kind of useless. I think it's actually kind of stupid. I think a lot of what we do today, taking all of these technical fields and bringing them to levels of hyper-specialization in physics, the search for new subatomic particles and string theory, mathematics, the quest for these grand theories of like Langland's conjectures and stuff like that. I think a lot of that is kind of futile. I don't think it really contributes to the betterment of humanity. I think it's a gigantic waste of resources. I think it's the sort of vestigial remains of a time in which technology kind of taught us something. At some point, I mean, we're tool users, and we have a long, very long tradition, an evolutionary tradition of using tools. We don't want to give that up. I mean, it's not that we don't want to give it up, but that's our mode of operation. In some sense, it's hard to think of anything else because we've been so conditioned, not just because we naturally have intelligence and use tools, but because we also have created a reinforcement of that idea through cultural norms. Now it's cultural. If a child grows up and shows an interest in science, if they show an interest in technology and they're intelligent, we encourage that. We have mechanisms, we have institutions to encourage that. It's built into our society, it's built into our culture. So, I think that reinforcement is very difficult to get around. So the alternative then is not to look for more technical solutions. It's not necessarily to stagnate, because some people have said, I've made some of these arguments in the past, and then some people have asked me, well, what should we do instead? Just stagnate? No, I don't think so. I think there are new creative ways of approaching the problems we have that don't involve technical innovation. It's a difficult thing because, it was Skolomovsky who said that technology and science has become the new messiah, and he's right. I don't remember the exact quote, but he basically said that now science and technology is the new messiah, and he's right. But we have to get around that. We have to drop that idea. We have to find solutions that aren't technical. One of those solutions can be regression. Yeah, technical regression can be an evolution in a sense. It doesn't mean a de-evolution. It doesn't mean a regression to the Stone Age. We can use our past experience. If a single person has a bad experience doing something, going down the wrong path, if they come back, if they retreat from that path, I think everyone has done something in their life that they probably would have done differently if they had more wisdom. If you regress down that path, you come back, you leave that wrong direction. It doesn't mean you go back to the beginning. You come to a new point where you're no longer going down that path and you're a wiser individual. As a society, we need to do the same thing. Technological regression, technological caution, rather than optimism, less innovation, less economic development doesn't mean a regression to barbaric times. It means going to a new point in which we are wiser based on the knowledge we've had before with our follies of technology. What we're doing now, AI data centers, no, that's absolutely asinine. It's ridiculous. It is a folly, a great folly. People who are developing AI are doing the world a great disservice. AI itself is a great disservice, and it's not going to solve anything. It's just going to create hundreds of more problems, not only by causing more pollution and energy usage, but also by destroying the very fabric of art, by devaluing it, by devaluing the human being. And that's a great folly. It's absolutely ridiculous. But why do people do that? Well, of course, there's money involved, but it's not just money. It's that drive to create something pushed in the wrong direction. We all have a creative drive to make things. We have this creative drive, but in modern society, we are conditioned to push that creative drive in the wrong direction. We're pushed to create in the wrong direction. So what we need to do is we need to find a pathway, a new way of doing things that doesn't involve technological innovation, that involves spending more time with nature, being in nature, learning, relearning from nature, not just because, in the past, societies that were more integrated with nature, hunter-gatherers, they knew about nature and they learned from it and they were supported by it. We need to come back to nature and learn something new. We need to say, well, we've made a mistake. This technological society, these cities, this dystopia that we've brought ourselves to, this level of climate change, we've made a mistake. Human beings, human society, global society, it's a mistake. Now, how can we find a new path? Nature can teach us that. Again, it's a totally new and uncharted territory. It doesn't mean people living in caves again. It doesn't mean a period of barbarism. It means taking our experience that we've had so far. It means taking our mistakes of developing too much technology, and it means going back to nature and feeling based on the spiritual connection with nature, what is the next step? And I really truly believe that the next step is not technical innovation. Or the next step has to be something else. The next step has to be something that involves living a simpler life, using less energy, stopping innovation, stopping the glorification of innovation in science. It doesn't mean turning our backs to rationality, because we are thinking creatures. We'll always have rational thinking. We'll always be curious, and we'll always have a scientific mindset. But it means taking science off a pedestal. It means putting it in its proper place. It means putting nature first over innovation, over economic development, over science. It will mean economic regression in a traditional sense, but that doesn't mean an economic recession as we've experienced before, because if you're stuck to the idea of the economy and technological civilization, a recession is a bad thing. If you take that time that we would be investing in the economy and invested into nature and experiencing nature, then we gain something. Our lives will improve. It's not easy to believe that, but that's the faith we have to have. We have to have the faith that if we trust in nature, preserve it, and spend more time in it, then we will find something new that's different than furthering the economy, that's different than innovation. We will find something new, and that is something we have to have faith in. That's the only way out of these problems. Technology is not the answer. Nature is the answer.